I believe was using Mongo with Kafka, but I see that Frédéric is here online. So it seems like there's probably a slight change to the order. So just bear with me for a second. So well, I'll introduce Frédéric instead, who is going to be presenting on MySQL 8.0, a document store, discovery of a new world. Very interested by this because we'll hear a lot about Mongo and how that's a document store, and that's a very popular database. But MySQL 8.0, really keen to see how that can also address this particular scenario. Our presenter is a former Perconian, but for the last 5 years, he has been fulfilling the role of the MySQL Community Manager at Oracle. So with that, over to you, Frédéric.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. So thank you, Martin. Do you see the screen well?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, everybody, and welcome to this slide. So it's a 1 hour show. No, I'm joking, giving some pressure. So you already introduced me, but some word about me first to start with. So my name is Frédéric Descamps, but I'm known as Le Fred. If you are looking this stream live, I will answer on the Slack channel. If not, and you have questions, please, you can use Twitter to join me and ask questions. I will reply to you. So I am MySQL evangelist working in the MySQL community team. I am managing MySQL for a long time already. So since 3.20, I found back my first version installed. I'm a DevOps believer living also in Belgium. And I have a website where you can find a lot of information. It's a blog about everything MySQL. So it's lefred.be. But let's go fast because I have a lot to tell today. So MySQL 8, of course, it's great. And we have been, we won this award of the DBMS of the year 2019. So we are very happy on that. And just because it's something special also this year, it's so MySQL is celebrating its 25th anniversary. So this is also something very interesting to know. And because of MySQL is there for a long time, and because I want to discover a new world so this talk is more related for developers than operators, like we have seen earlier today. And so I want to talk about this evolution of MySQL and also applications related to it. So this is the evolution from the LAMP stack, where MySQL was very, very popular and still is, but how it reached now in this new modern web application. So in the old days, and I saw from previous talks and chats that have a very there are a lot of friends that from these years to online. So who were doing this application, right? So this is the type of guy who were doing this application in the like 20 years ago, and how they were deploying this application. It's easy. The setup was looking like this, right? So we had the internet, there was some load balancer, proxy router in front of it, and then all this PHP application, mostly web servers, and reaching this relational database, can be any, and of course it was MySQL for us. And people loved this this database and this let's say relational database, which is MySQL. Why? Because if we were there for 25 years and we have still be the most popular, right? It means that we were able with relational database giving data integrity, so normalization, constraint, foreign keys, all that kind of stuff. MySQL is also and any relational database ACID compliant, right? So we had this durability, very important for us, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and supporting transaction. And of course, a very nice query language, which is SQL, which it's very powerful. So all that was what the developers were needed to create their application. But now things have changed. So this new web application currently how they are done and by who? By this guy. There's a bit of difference, right? So, and how they are doing this, they are doing it like this. So this is how it evolves. So not much changes, but what we can see here in this picture, it's that, okay, we still have this, for example, PHP application, but now we have also Node.js application, Python application. And where do we store the data? It's also different. We can see that MySQL, it's still there, so relational database, but also now we have document store, because we are adding this document, this data in a different layout, right? So why this? Because the developer, they don't like SQL anymore. So everywhere I go, when I meet students or young developers, they always try to go away of SQL. I don't think it's a good idea, but it's fact, it's reality. So SQL, I think, is still very powerful. It has a lot of future and it's still needed, but sometimes the developers, they don't like it, or they don't see the need for it at the beginning, I would say, and then it changed. But why that? Because it's complicated and it slows down the initial development. So I've seen some queries in all my DBA career that can be written in many pages. So it's true, it can be very complicated, but sometimes it's needed, right? And but this is one of the reasons why these young developers or people going for the new let's say programming language, they want to go away of it. And also, like I said, the initial development is much faster without SQL most of the time. So, and they don't have time to learn SQL. Why? Because they need to work out, right? To look like this guy, to see, okay, no time to study SQL, more time for workout and have a nice look. But this was for the humor. So what do they really want, in fact, the developer? They want easy operations, right? They want to use documents or objects and just store them, then retrieve them and use them. So it is what they like. And this is why developers like something that usually all DBAs, grumpy DBAs like me, hate the most are the ORMs. But in the developer world, ORMs was something very popular, and they really like it. And they want to deal with this object very easily using this CRUD operation, right? Something much easier than a query language. And they don't want to think about schema design, like you have seen earlier. So with relational database schema, changing the schema can be painful. And this is what Shlomi was explaining, how we can do that easily, but it's still, there is a lot to think about and to process. It's not always easy to do, right? So, and also the developers, what they need, they want to keep their data safe and use transaction. They don't want to lose their data, right? So this is also something very important. So how can do that? In fact, this is how they do it. Like I just explained earlier, they are using different data store. So they still have this relational database to put all that important data that need transaction, that need durability. But also they are using new document store to store these JSON documents, these objects, right? So this is where we have these NoSQL databases, which provide you schema-less, no need to think about the structure. So no schema design, no normalization, no foreign keys, no data type, all that very easily. This can provide to them very quickly initial development. So it's very fast for them to develop new stuff because they don't need to think about what are the relation, and they just grab and store objects or documents and then in their application do what they need to do with it. So it's very flexible data structure. They can embed array, embed objects, and sometimes it's very complicated also to think about what will be this design for how can I modelize this data or this object into a relational model. They don't need to think about that. And of course, they can also persist object without thinking about or using an ORM, which make the DBA happy, but and they don't need to maintain that ORM, and so they can store it directly in the document store. And of course, they use JSON most of the time. This is very close to the front end and very easy to learn, because when you see a JSON document, it talks per se, like we say. It's very easy to understand what's in it. So this is how the DBA see the data, right? So, I see a table and a relation, but this is how the developer sees the data, right? So this is how it works now. So we are, most of the time they are using both, but also after a while, when an application becomes very popular, and this is what I hope to every people writing applications, it's that at a certain point, the back office says, oh, but we still need some reporting. We still need some to do some analytics. So this is how it works. So they have, on the relational database, it's very easy. They just run their SQL and they create these analytics. But after that, when the data they want to check, it's on the JSON part, right, on the document store, how do they do that? This is more complicated. So they need help. And who can help them? Again, this guy. Yes, it's back. It's back in the business, because now what people does, or what I saw, is that I saw a lot of people pumping that data out of a document store and putting back in the relational database to be able to query with the query language, which is SQL, right? So in MySQL, we were thinking, what if there was a way to provide this both SQL and NoSQL in one platform that is stable and that has a proven stability, and that with a lot of very large ecosystem, a very strong community, and a lot of tools around it? What if this would be possible? So where, if people had to choose between relational database and NoSQL, and what not both? So this is what we decide in MySQL. And this is how we come with the MySQL document store, where the SQL, it's completely optional. Yes, SQL, it's no optional. You can use MySQL without SQL. So this is what we propose, is to use the MySQL document store, where from the application, if you need relational data, so tables, just store them in MySQL like you always did. But if you need to store documents, you can also store them in MySQL, just like a document store. But after that, you can also retrieve that data, mix it together using SQL. So this is very nice. So it's a solution for everybody, from business owner, operations, and of course developers, because this is the people we are targeting mostly, because for them it's schema-less, very rapid prototyping. They can use the documents, but they still have a transaction. And for the others, for example, the operation, it's very simple to upgrade, because they don't have schema. It's schema-less, right? But they keep their tooling, what they have, so they can keep exactly the same architecture like they do. They are familiar with for replication, for backup, for everything, for point-in-time recovery. All that, it's exactly the same, right? So this is very nice. So let's talk about this solution. So the MySQL document store. So the MySQL document store, it's built in on the MySQL JSON data type that was already in 5.7, right? And of course, MySQL Server. So it provides you a very flexible JSON document store, where you can use it without need for SQL. Like I said, it is amazing, but yes, it's true. And you can, it's no need to define all the attributes and all the table. You can just do what you need. It uses the new Xdev API. So there is a new developer API that allows you to do this CRUD operation. I will show you that afterward. And for example, a document in our solution can be up to 1 gigabyte almost, which is much more than a certain other document store where you're limited to 16 megabytes, right? And yeah, it allows the modern programming language, like I said earlier, and it also works with relational database. To do that, what you need also is to have connectors that allows you to use this X protocol and this Xdev API, and all connectors that are delivered by MySQL are able to do that. So we provide connectors for C++, Java, .NET, Node.js, Python, PHP, and we are working with communities to help supporting it too for other connectors that we don't maintain ourselves. You can also have MySQL shell. So if you follow me for some time, you know that I'm very, very happy with the MySQL shell and very attached to it, and I really like it. So the new shell provides, so it's a new client for MySQL. It provides you a command completion, but it has also different modes like Python, JavaScript, and SQL. And it can do, of course, this XDVPI, so all this CRUD operation. The shell is also supporting them. It has admin function, but I won't talk about that when you want to deploy HA, for example, and more. So let's see how we can use the document store, right? And what we need to do to install it. So what we need to do is to install MySQL 8. Then we install MySQL shell. This is not mandatory, but it's nice if you want to play with it. And the MySQL connector for your programming language, right? So if you are using PHP, you need to install PHP Percona MySQL XDVPI, let's say program, right? Or package. And for Python, it's MySQL connector Python and so on. And nothing else. When you do that, you have everything you need. And if you want to use this, of course, this document store with the XDVPI, you will need to use the X protocol. And the X protocol by default in MySQL 8, it's open and it's listening on the port 33060. So if you have a firewall, you just need to allow connection to it, right? If you are, maybe you know already, but MySQL database service is now in OCI since September. And if you want to use a document store, the X protocol is also available in MDS. So you can use that in the cloud without any issue. So like Martin said earlier, he was talking about MongoDB. So let's see how we can migrate some data out of MongoDB and use it in a MySQL document store. So to do that, I will use the very known restaurant collection that it's used in several tutorials, right? So what I do, I use Mongo export. I say, oh, I want the restaurant collection, and I want to put that in a file, and you can see it's about approximately a bit more than 25,000 records, right? So when you do that, after that, we use the shell, and we just do, okay, shell has many utilities, many functions, and I have dedicated talks about that. I can reply on the Slack later if you have other questions on the shell. But one of the utility is the import JSON. So you say which file it is, which schema you want, which collection. If you don't provide that information, it will take the file name. Because it comes from Mongo, we need to enable convert based on OID, and that's it. Enter, and you can see it will import the 25,000 documents in MySQL in one single line from the shell. So, and like my friend Marco would say, it's too easy, right? But it's true, it's very easy to do that. So now that we have that data, let's have a look. So if we want to find all this document that we have in our document store, and as you can see here, I'm using MySQL shell in JavaScript, we just do the find CRUD operation, right? But it will provide you, it will return the 25,000 documents. There is no hard-coded limit by default. So we need to add a limit if we want some of them only. So I want only one. It's a bit maybe small, but as you can see here, it's just the first document. So the first restaurant that was in that collection. And as you can see, it's not a table, it's just a document, a JSON document, right? You can also say, oh, I want to retrieve some fields of it only, and a limit of 2 records. So what you can do is restaurant find, and you add some limits, some fields you want to retrieve. So fields are attributes, and then you see how it works, and we have this. And you can also expand the find operation with adding some criteria. So in this case, I will say, okay, I want to find all restaurant that have the cuisine, that have Italian cuisine, and I want just the name and the cuisine and limit to 2, and this is how it works. So if you are familiar with MongoDB, you will see that the syntax is slightly different than MongoDB. So our goal, like I said, is not to replace MongoDB, it's to make storing data and playing with data using MySQL, very easy for developers, right? So if you have never done NoSQL, if you never used any CRUD operation, when you see that, usually I ask to the audience what does it mean, but I will do the exercise by myself as we are online. So what we do here is say, okay, I want to find all restaurants that are serving French cuisine and that are not located in Manhattan. And from this restaurant, I only want to show the name and the cuisine and the borough, and I want only to limit that to 2 restaurants only. So the first 2 restaurants in my collection. And this is all what it does, right? If I wanted to do that in MongoDB, I should have written this this syntax, meaning that if I don't want something, I need to use like a not and a regular expression. If I don't want to show the ID, I have to put the ID 0 and then enable all attributes I want to show and limit to. You see the result, it's exactly the same. The syntax is different. So what does it mean for developers, right? Because this is where the people I try to target, right? So this is my very good skills in PHP and in I would say in design. Sorry for that, but I am one of the guy of the 2000, right? And so this is like a form and what's going on. So the code behind this is what it does. It's a session, so we open a MySQL session to a server. Then we use which schema we want, which collection we want to use, and then we retrieve all the data using the search. The search was the element I added in the form. And then from them, you can see I just do a loop and display all the results there, right? So as you can see, I was checking in MySQL, very easy, and only using CRUD operation. There is no single SQL statement in this, and I was connecting to a MySQL server, right? So let's have a look to CRUD operation. We saw find already. Here it's remove. So if I remove the first 2 restaurants here that we had previously, when I find again with the same criteria, the previous 2 are gone, and now we have 2 new ones that are the next 2, right? Because the other one are deleted. So this is just how you use the CRUD operation we have. So we have add a document. So it's just the add command, and you can see you can add multiple let's say commands to the same collection, or you can combine them together in an array. All that is possible. You can modify. So modify it's or with a set, or what I really like, you can also do a patch of the JSON document. So this is very cool. And you can patch it and execute it. And remove, we already saw it's the remove to delete, right? So this is a summary of the CRUD operation. And as you can see, what I just showed you were there are CRUD operation for collection. Collection means the a table where we only put documents, right? But you can also use CRUD operation for relational tables. So all you need to know, it's here. So I invite you to have a look if you really if you're looking into this, right? And something very important, it's that the MySQL document store is full ACID compliant. So maybe you don't know yet, but we do care about your data in MySQL. So this is very important for us. So how can we achieve this full ACID for a document store? It's because it relies on the strength and the robustness of MySQL InnoDB. So meaning that by default, flush log a transaction commit, it's 1. So every time you commit data, it's synced also to the InnoDB logs, so to disk. The double write buffer, it's on. The sync bin lock, it's 1. So if you have a replication topology, this is very important. And we support transaction isolation also. So like I said, it's never said enough, we do care about your data in MySQL. So as we are full ACID compliant, we support transaction, and this is how a transaction works. So you just do a session, you start the transaction in your session, you do some data. So in this case, I add some data. So you add some data, or you delete, or you modify, and after you can commit or roll back. And as you can see, it works. So transactions are very easy in the document store. So we have the document store, we have CRUD operation. and we are ACID with transaction, the data is safe. But what makes the MySQL document store so unique then? And this is where I want to spend the last time we have together with this challenge. So if you want to list the best restaurant of each type of food, right? And only show the top 10 with the best one first. And we had 25,000 documents in JSON in our database, right? Don't forget that it's only JSON documents. How can you do that? With NoSQL, it's very, very complicated. You will have to read them all, put them all in the application, and play with the application. With the MySQL document store, you can say, oh, I will use SQL on my NoSQL documents. And this is what we're going to do. So we're going to use common table expression that are supported in MySQL 8. We're going to use window function that are also supported in MySQL 8. And we will use this JSON table that will allow us to play with the document like if it was a relational table, a normal table, right? And then in few seconds, we have the answer without having to retrieve all the records from it. So this is something very, very powerful in the MySQL 8 document store. So you have the possibility to write this clean and neat code, right? Like here. But also when SQL is needed, you can also use SQL on the data and everything on the same MySQL X session. It's not that you need to connect differently. You can, so you connect once to the database, and from there you can say, oh, I always use CRUD operation. Now I need some SQL. I will just run SQL on this session. So this is completely feasible, and you can mix both as you want. So you can have SQL or just CRUD operation to do the same. So now I will show some functions that are cool. So for example, the JSON table allows you to use a document like if it was a table. And therefore you can, for example, in this case, oh, I want to find the max score from one of the restaurants. And this is how you do that, right? This is cool. But then you say, yeah, it's cool. But like I wanted to go to modern language, my application only processed JSON. No problem. Let's just put that in JSON again. So you can run the same SQL statement on JSON documents and retrieve JSON objects out of it. So this is cool. So this was for developers. And for the DBA then, the role of the DBA in the MySQL document store, it's almost the same. Not much difference, right? Find the non-optimal lookups and create the index if necessary, or fix if there are other issues. So for example, if you are doing full table scans, you can go query the performance schema tables for that, or the schema. And yeah, if you want to find more information about that, because this could be a talk on per se, you can find that on reference.be. So we run this full table scan and then check if there are some full table scan. And you can see here, okay, these are the longest table and longest queries we had, right? And then, like usual, you can do, okay, let's do the query execution plan using explain. And we see that indeed, this is a full table scan, right? And then we can also use explain analyze. So if you don't know yet, this is in MySQL 8. So you can run the query and it will really give you the query execution plan with what are the estimated costs, but also give you the real time of it because it will execute it. So, and we can see that it does a table scan. So when the DBA will see that, what it does, it will create an index. You can create an index using CRUD operation, or like you see here, I'm in JavaScript, or in SQL, you can also create an index on the JSON attributes like this. So it's very easy. Just for information, but this is more for people that will download the slides. There is possibility to shortcut notations to not have to use always the long function names, right? So when the index is created, we check again the query execution plan, and we can see that now we are using the index and it's much faster, right? So the role of the DBA, it's exactly the same. And if you are very curious, this is how a document looks like in SQL. It has an ID and it has a doc which is a JSON data type field where we put all the JSON. So since MySQL 8.0 we have also JSON array indexes, and we have also JSON schema. It's fun because people want schema-less, but at the end they want to have schema in their schema-less, right? So this is how we have this function. So I will go fast here, but please, because the time is running fast also. But so we have JSON array indexes that allows you to index multiple value point on the same record from inside of an array. So for example, these are some examples. I want to find which one has a 38 in the grade, for example, and we can see that, right? Since 8.25, we have JSON values, and we have also check constraints, and like I said, the schema validation that allows you to validate your schema. And when you mix both, it's very nice because you can create here, like you can see here, I can create a constraint with the schema validation. And if you, for example, in this case, I will say, okay, the cuisine cannot be more than 32 as a string. If you violated the constraint, you are not able to do that. So my time is up. So what do I gain with MySQL Document Store? Like I said, best of the both worlds: data integrity, ACID compliant, transaction SQL, one part, and the other part schema-less, flexible data structure, and easy to start. So thank you for this. I don't know if we have time for questions. If not, I will be on Slack to answer them.